and welcome to another Pluriboom camera review. Today we're taking a look at the Olympus 35RC. Now this was produced in 1970 by Olympus and it's a small rangefinder camera, a compact rangefinder camera with a few features that you don't see in other rangefinders of this size or stature. And one of the things that I really like about this camera, and right off the bat I'll mention, is that you can shoot in full manual mode or you can use auto exposure mode. And while the auto exposure mode is great, it is very uncommon for this small of a rangefinder to also have a full manual mode as well. You see even the newer ones like the Olympus XA being almost entirely auto exposure driven. So let's take a look at some of the features. One of the things that you'll notice is that on the front here, and you see this with a lot of these sort of rangefinder cameras of this size, is you set your ISO value by twisting this inner ring on the lens barrel. And it's not always easy to do. You basically have to twist pretty hard and push at the same time. But it goes from 25 ISO up to 800, and so that's your max. And that's your max if you're using auto exposure. So if you were using this in manual mode, you could presumably use whatever ISO film you want, but you're a bit limited if you are trying to use the auto exposure mode. So the interesting thing too about this camera is that it is entirely mechanical. The only thing that the battery down at the bottom here is used for is to drive the needle in the viewfinder. And this is one other thing that is unique to this camera. When you look through the viewfinder, you'll notice that there are actually two needles. Through the viewfinder, you can see the shutter speed at the top and the f-stop at the bottom. And when you half press your shutter, you will actually see, when you're in auto mode, the needle go to the f-stop that it is selecting for you. So this is a shutter priority camera when it's in auto exposure mode, which means that you set your shutter here. So the way that you switch between these modes is basically at the very base of this barrel. So you'll see here you can twist and you can select your own f-stops manually this way, but if you want to be on auto exposure mode, you switch it over to A for auto. And so that is shutter priority, so you have up to 500 shutter speed on this, and it's also got a bulb mode, and it does actually an amazing job at nailing these exposures. This is one of those cameras where you'll pull your negatives out of a tank and stick them up on a light table, and you'll see perfect density and perfect exposures across the entire sheet. It will definitely surprise you the first few times that you use the auto mode on this camera. And that is, I guess, why I have to admit that I don't use the manual mode very often on this camera. It does have one other mode that I think is pretty incredible, and that is the Flashmatic mode, which basically means it does everything. So you stick a flash, so here I've got the National PE 170 flash here, and you can use any sort of like sync cord flash like this, and you slide it on and you plug in your sync cable, and that's about all you do. And as long as your ISO setting is correct on the front there, you can rock around with this thing and take perfect, exposed photos in dark settings. Now, the one thing I will say about this viewfinder here is that the center patch is incredibly small and incredibly dim. So it is not the easiest to focus this thing in the dark, and oftentimes you'll want to be getting good at your sort of zone focusing. Like you've got the little measurements here from 1 up into infinity. It's good to get better at that if you're going to be shooting in dark spaces and things like that. But overall, my general advice is just take your time. I mean, this is a small rangefinder camera. It's not an action camera. If you're taking photos of people, ask them to sit there for a second while you focus. It'll pay off huge time because really you're gonna be frustrated if you don't do that and you pull out your negatives, and while they are perfectly exposed, they're all, you know, just barely out of focus. So it can be a little frustrating. The other thing about this camera, and I'll let you take a look here, is that it has a very light shutter. It's just a two-blade aperture and a simple two-blade shutter as well. So if you set it to bold mode and you crank this back and you switch this off of into one of the manual modes, we can click this and look at the shutter there. And so you can see when it closes back down, it's just got that sort of like half moon shape. It's just a very light shutter mechanism. And so if you actually listen to it, I'll put it on 500 here, it's very quiet. It's a world of difference from, say, a large SLR like an FM2 that sounds like a handgun going off when you're shooting it. So in that respect, I think it's pretty cool. It's a very nice sort of just day trip camera. Just sling it on your shoulder, take it to the park, and, you know, have a nice reliable camera to go with you. It's not the sturdiest camera. You aren't going to drop it on the ground, you know, a number of times and still have it work flawlessly. I mean, a lot of it is plastic, you know, but it is a reliable camera, and it does have a beautiful lens. If you look at some of the results from this lens, I think that they are rivaling or better than the Olympus XA. And overall, I think it's a fun camera to have. It is one in my collection that I use very frequently because of its compact size and its ease of use. So the Olympus 35RC, if you have used this camera before, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think about this camera. I'm going to be doing more of these videos now. I got a new lighting setup, so hopefully the quality of these videos is a little bit better. And if you enjoy them, please give me a like and maybe a subscribe, and check on back for more videos coming out. I'm going to be doing some medium format cameras and maybe even some large format cameras as well. And hopefully I'll get into some 16mm movie cameras. So keep on watching, and thanks for taking a look today.